Welcome back to the Williams Real Estate Channel. I'm your host, Geordie Williams. Tonight, we are discussing the blue chip bandits. They've made a return. They've striked again. The good old blue chip bandits are saying to buy property in Warners Bay. We're digging deep tonight. Should you go and buy a supposed blue chip property in a regional town? Those who don't know Warners Bay, it is on the outskirts of Newcastle in regional New South Wales. Half an hour or so, 40 minutes probably from the CBD of Newcastle, and I'd say about 2 hours to Sydney. Let's have a look. See how far it takes to drive. An hour, 50 minutes. That's at 8:30 p.m. on a Wednesday night. So no traffic, peak hour, 3 hours. So do not get mistaken. This is a regional town. So blue chip, arguably, I doubt it. It is more or less a working class area, regional working class area, just north of Lake Macquarie, half an hour, 40 minutes to Newcastle CBD. So don't get mistaken, this is by no means blue chip, but this is how they dress it up to be. And this is a recent one the old blue chip bandits have secured. 26 James Street for 1.4 million, 1.42 million. And the first mistake is they have, by the looks of things, well and truly overpaid for what CoreLogic is saying it's worth based off comparable sales. We run these reports and typically we pick up property 10 to 15, 20% under market and under these medium, and we definitely don't touch anything on or above what these medium estimated values are because the banks use them. And if you want to be able to pull out your equity within 6 to 12 months, you need to build in equity from day one. It's all about the price you pay relative to its intrinsic value and comparable sales. And you make your money on the buy. However, this person didn't, as they paid 1.4 million and it's saying it's worth 1.35, and the medium price point for Warners Bay is only $1 million. Gee whiz, not a great deal. First mistake. That's what I see. But what I like to dig into is to understand where this market actually sits based off the 18-year land cycle. Well, there they are. Ugly bunch. I use this 18-year land cycle as a framework. I'm a student of history. I'm a student of the cycle. The further back you look, the better you understand how market cycles work. And the blue chip bandits only look at the last 15 years. Second mistake, you need to dig deeper. And if you stick around, I'll show you why. Even the supposed experts, like the blue chip bandits, are getting it all wrong. And it is like a train wreck happening in slow motion. I can see it coming. We are on the blue marker. Equivalent point of time is in 2005 in the prior cycle. And we use this 18-year land cycle as a framework to firstly understand where we sit in the market. Because from that, you can then look back at history and not just look at property, but you can look at stocks, commodities, cryptocurrency, interest rates. Everything is affected by the 18-year land cycle as it plays out. So we use the 18-year land cycle to work out where we sit in the market and hone in on exactly where we believe we sit in the market, which I believe we are mid to late 2005, 18 months away from peak market, or we will then enter the next land-driven downturn when the fundamentals will change. So buyers beware. But if you can visualize now that we are in 2005, as we have recovered out of the the COVID recession, which was equivalent to the dot-com bust, and we are now away at the races in the winner's curse, final year and a half to 2 years from peak market before we'll go through the next land-driven downturn, which will be like the next GFC-like event. So we are on the blue marker in 2005. So based on that, I'll now bring back the 20 years of sales data for Warners Bay and see what it looks like. So this is the same property that they secured for over 1.4 million, which firstly, I believe is overpaid. I would have bought a block of units or two. That would provide a good 8-9% yield. This thing is providing a 5% yield, so not even a solid yield. And overpay, average yield, and they say it's blue chip and it's going to provide solid growth. Well, check this out. So we'll start by looking at the long-term market trend. And this report is for this exact property. So not trying to have any smoke and mirrors here. This is raw data. If you can see on the graph, on the chart, between 2005 and onwards, this market pretty well went stagnant and flatline until around 2013, when then it hooked through the growth cycle. This is a similar pattern to most regional towns in New South Wales. Regional New South Wales, I believe, based off the 18-year land cycle and this historical sales data, topped out in 2022, as you can see, and has now retraced. Typically, markets after a boom will soften 10-15%, and then they go through protracted periods of flat to next to no growth. So over the next 7 or 8 years, Warners Bay, along with most of regional New South Wales, is due to stagnate until it will experience its next growth cycle once people decentralize out of Sydney and then head out into the regions again. So now is definitely not the time to, not just Warners Bay, but anywhere in New South Wales regions, because you're not going to get the growth. The blue chip bandits are only looking at 15 years of sales data, and they're only looking at data from 2010 to date, or 2008, 9 to date, where yes, the last 10 or 15 years has had solid growth, but that is a flow-on effect from the decentralization out of Sydney. It doesn't always, not every market goes booming 8, 9, 10% every year on average. They go through significant booms within a 7 to 8 year window, and then they go through 10 years of stagnant growth. Just like what happened in this market from 2005 all the way to 2013 is what is going to happen between 2022 and the next 7 or 8 years, because we are in a similar point of the cycle now in mid-late 2005. So that's the visual, and now we'll run some numbers. So the blue chip bandits paid 1.4 when the medium's 1 million. First mistake. We always buy well under the medium, so then it's only a matter of time that the price you pay then realigns to the medium and goes above it in the boom. And you want to make sure you're getting a good solid deal, so you're making equity on day one and not overpaying. Crazy. So look what happened between, so we're in 2025, obviously, $1 million, but a similar point of the time in the cycle is 2005, 2006. And between 2006 to 2012, so a good 6 years, let's run the calcs. did next to no growth. So $377,609 in medium price point in 2012 for Warners Bay, minus 368,174 in 2006 equals a whopping $9,500 in growth in 6 years, divided by 368,174 equals times 100. 2.5% is what Warners Bay can expect over the next 6 to 7 years. So pretty well stagnant, flat growth based off history, based off the 18-year land cycle. I cannot stress this enough. These blue chip bandits and these guys are supposed experts. There's a lot of punters out there pushing markets that will learn the hard way. And unfortunately, they're pushing people into these markets that will not see the growth. They dress it up to be this supposed blue chip area where you're going to get 8, 9, 10% growth every year. It doesn't happen. You need to study history. You need to see what happened in history so then you can understand where markets are heading in the future. So Warners Bay is going to be flatlining at $1 million for the next 7, 8 years. Topped out in 22, and as you can see, nearly hit $1 million. And from 2022 to 2025, it has done, let's just run these calcs. So just over $1 million in 2025 medium, minus 9,845,73. So a whopping 28,000 in 2 and a bit years, divided by 984,000 minus 100, 2%. So as I said, it's done 2% in the last 2 years, and from 2006 to 2012, it did another 2 odd percent. So it will do, this market will flatline for the next 7 or 8 years, and that will be about 10 years until 2032, 2033, when it will then commence its next growth cycle, like what happened between 2013 to 2022. So don't get fooled. Don't get conned by the shiny TikTokers, all the marketing, all the followers. It's all bullshit. It is all bullshit. These people have not come from property and construction background. They have bursted onto the scene and they have all the shiny marketing, but they don't know property. And unfortunately, people will learn the hard way. So I'll leave it there for tonight. I might have to do a part 2 and explain what I would do with 1.4 million bucks, would be to buy blocks of units in markets that are set for growth, which is Sydney and Melbourne. We're now focusing on Sydney and Melbourne for the next growth cycle, and we're sticking away from Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide, and regional Queensland. Even though we bought a lot in Brisbane and regional Queensland over the last 4 to 5 years, we started buying in 2018. We pulled out of the markets in around 2023. They're getting too hot. They'll still have growth, but they're due to top out, just like what Adelaide is topping out now. And as you saw on those charts, regional New South Wales topped out in 2022, is into a 2-year slowdown, which will last another 7 to 8 years, depending which town. Regional Victoria is in a slowdown, will last another 5 to 6 years. Sydney's approaching the bottom, will bottom out in the next 18 months to 2 years. Melbourne's at the bottom. So we like to buy between low competition, bottom market, rising rents. When it's most pessimistic, that's the best time to buy. Be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. We're greedy on Sydney and Melbourne now, and we're fearful or staying away from Adelaide, regional Queensland, Brisbane, Brisbane and Perth. That's not to say don't add value to your stock if you've already got that properties there. That's what we're doing now. We're doing renovations and development. Makes sense. If you bought a property 5 years ago, it's doubled or gone up 180%. Instead of keep buying property and acquiring into those heated markets, add value. Renovation, subdivision, knock down, complete rebuild, development. That's what it makes sense to do so, to add value into those markets, but not keep acquiring into overheated markets because you'll be like 99% of people who end up getting stuck at one or two for many years because they buy peak market or even get conned by the blue chip bandits and buy into markets that are due already started their protracted slow period because they're not looking at the 18-year land cycle and 20 years of sales data. They're only looking at the last 10 or 15 years of boom, but not every market. There's not one market that continues to keep booming 10% on average every year. It doesn't happen. Markets go through, on average, 7 to 8 years of boom. They then top out, soften, and then they go through, on average, 10 years of stagnant growth. Sometimes less in more diversified economies, sometimes longer in less diversified economies, such as regional Queensland and WA. But on average, 10 years of stagnant growth and then a solid growth cycle. So we like to get into markets after their stagnant growth periods because it's any time where they can hook into a growth cycle and not just rely on one region, such as Newcastle or the eastern suburbs, because you have to be across multiple markets to diversify across the markets, but then also diversify across policy. We're not have vested interest in just one suburb or areas or regions because it's easy for the buyer's agent who just located in that area. That doesn't make sense. If they're only like buying in one or two markets because their offices are set up there, that's not the way to invest. You need to be holistic across the whole of Australia. But in saying that, you need to make sure that you're not getting into markets that are overheated and ready for a downturn. Until next time, I hope that helped. Catch you on the next one.